I was going to say, Declan, well, we can just get started and just do, so we're just going to, Declan and I are just going to do a very brief intro, and then obviously then I'm going to do the first half, and then Declan's going to take the second half, and then we'll elaborate a little bit more for the people on the call that don't know one of the two of us. So just, I suppose, just to give a bit of a background to how Declan and I have come to be on here from other sides of the world. And for people that don't know, is that I am originally from Glasgow in Scotland. I've been living in Australia for almost 7 years, and I went back home to Scotland for 2 months, December and January of last year and this year, and through LinkedIn connections set up a meeting with Declan, went through to Edinburgh, we caught up, and there was just some real synergy there with our businesses and with Declan's work, and we kind of said, well, let's look at doing a webinar or something when you go back to Australia. And obviously when COVID hit, we kind of started to chat and said, like, this is the present time to, I think, just actually let's just do something that we can really be able to help people at this time. So that's really what's brought us here today, to be able to do that. And I'll elaborate a little bit more about what I do. Declan, do you want to give a bit of an intro for the Aussies on the call who haven't met you before?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Melody said, we met a few months ago. She came through to Edinburgh, and context with me, so I'll go into this with my section in a bit more detail. I run the Startup Grind Edinburgh chapter. So Startup Grind is a global community of entrepreneurs where we come together for events with expert speakers, a chance to engage with other startups and founders and business-like people. Of course, during COVID, it's not physically possible, but it is virtually, which I'll be going into in a bit more detail. And like Melanie said as well, it's a great opportunity for us to, I guess, kind of combine different approaches when it comes to running events. And that's something that you'll see with our two sections, and plenty of time for Q&A as well. So keen to hear from you guys what you really want to have answered in terms of questions and anything that pops up. Let us know in the chat and we'll get it covered.
Definitely. Thank you. And thank you so much, everybody, for jumping on. I know that there's just a lot of things going on at some people's mornings, some people's afternoons, evenings as well. And I know for a lot of people in Australia, they've been busy homeschooling all day. I know for people in the UK, that's something that everybody's waking up to do. So I know that that's brought a lot of challenges for people as well. I've actually been loving being on with clients, and I feel like I've met their entire family when we're having sessions. It's been actually really quite fun, and I'm saying to my clients, just embrace, like, let them come and sit on your knee, and that's okay to do that because we are in different times right now. But I've actually really quite enjoyed being able to meet more of people's families than what I normally would. Oh, we've got someone else popping in. Katrina's on.
Hey, good timing.
All right, so I'm going to kick off, everyone, and I'm going to share my screen and take you through. And then I'm going to keep the chat box out. So if anybody, I will be kind of asking some questions, and I'll get people to pop it in the chat box as well, just as we're going along, everyone. Declan, you can hear me, just to let me know that everybody can hear me okay?
Yeah, all good, all good.
Excellent. So there we go. So I'm just going to do a bit of a brief story about myself, if that's okay, and then I'm going to be able to take you through some steps to be able to help yourself and your community during these uncertain times. So a little bit of a background of me for the people on this call who haven't met me before. And so my name is Melanie Wood. I'm the founder and owner of my business, Speaking Styles, and I help business owners, entrepreneurs, managers, and leaders be able to gain more clarity clarity and confidence to be able to talk about who you are, what you do, to be able to grow your business, be able to more effectively communicate your message in your workplace, and really be able to share that amazing, wonderful work that you do. And one of the reasons why I absolutely love about what I do, to really be able to help people do that in person, and obviously doing it a lot more online now. And I used to be so scared of public speaking. So throughout my entire life, I literally would avoid it in school. I would wait for the bell to ring and go like, I've made it through another day without having to get up in front of the class and share anything. And I literally lived my life like that, where just absolutely avoiding it, even through school, through high school, through college, and then even to the point of university, which I went to late in my 20s. And then I was given the direction of, if I didn't do this presentation at university in front of the class, then I wouldn't pass. And as much as I, kicked off about it, it was just not going to happen. But I did manage to negotiate to the point of being able to do it on a Saturday and just with, say, like 3 people. So I did very good at being able to delegate and negotiate so that I could avoid it. And then, so anyway, I did do my presentations to be able to pass my university degree. And then as I climbed the career ladder, I was then in a managerial role, and I was having to obviously take staff meetings, go to external agencies, go to meetings. And then I got really good at delegating. So I used my power in the wrong way of getting other people to do that for me, because I was so petrified of doing it. And then just before I came to Australia, I'm from Scotland, just over almost 7 years ago, I ended up looking at, really overcoming that as I really went into self-development. And I was given the book The Secret just over 7 years ago by Rhonda Byrne. And I was never somebody that was exposed to self-development, any of spirituality or anything like that. So when I was given this book and it was telling me to take responsibility for lots of different things in my life, I threw the book back at the person. And she said, read it again with an open mind. And I did. And then I came to Australia, and I really started to want to be able to overcome lots of different fears, a lot of different things that had happened to me in my past. And then I started to be able to overcome the fear of public speaking. I joined an organization, and for the past 6-7 years, I've learned the art of public speaking. And I really started to see the true skill of having it, and what a difference it can make in your life. It started to make such a difference in my role as a manager. And then I ended up starting my business around 3 years ago. And really to be able to help the people that I help, it's just absolutely amazing to see that transformation. And given the times that we're in now, is that I'm really passionate and teach a lot of soft skills to organizations, and emotional intelligence is a massive one for me. It's something that I have learned so much about, and this is what I really want to talk to everybody about today on this session, is just the fact that we are in these uncertain times, is that people are behaving in different ways to they normally are. We're having to do a lot of stuff at home, go inwards. And there's just a lot of different things that we're all having to process. So that's just a little bit about myself. I want to be able to take you through all of what we have here this morning, going on. So just to get a little bit of an understanding of where people are at, I'm going to get you to put in the chat box for me. So I just want to know where everybody is right now. So number one, I just have to move some things out of my way. So number one, I want to just know from people is that, are you new to online in your communities? Number two, are you uncertain about building online? Number three, you might have lost a little bit of confidence to speak and build online because of what's happened, or you might be really experienced online, but you just need a little bit more help and direction. Let me know which one for you. And you might be a little bit of other ones as well. So hey Craig, nice to meet you. 2 and 4, Kim's 2 and 3. Oh, man, 4. 1, 2, and 3, Petrina, depending on what day. That's right. But no, that's great. Thank you so much to everybody for sharing where you're at right now. So we probably do quite a lot of 3s as well, of people have lost a little bit of confidence given the current situation as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for sharing that. So the 3 things that I would like to share with everybody today is around mindset, emotional intelligence, and communication, so that this sets you up to be able to have the mindset, but also have the emotional intelligence, the empathy for yourself, but as well as other people given this time, and really be able to have some skills around communication as well. So it's going to be my top 3 things that I'm going to be able to share with everybody today. So just to begin with as well, and just given the current feedback that you've given here today is around, you know, some of it can be around loss of confidence, a little bit new to this, looking at, you know, getting that direction to move forward, is that when it comes to whether we're communicating with one person or a group, is that we then have some fears that can be holding us back from really putting ourselves out there, or putting ourselves out there in front of a camera to really engage and connect with people. So the 4 fears that one of them, or there could be a few that could be holding you back, is around fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of humiliation and embarrassment, or fear of loss of power. And one that came up recently in a workshop that I was doing, people were talking about, well, they might have a fear of success. So again, that's a bit of a 5th one there that might be for you. So I want you just to take a moment and think about, you know, what you're doing in business, what are you doing in a workplace that you're having to change or transition to doing things online to be able to build a community and support them. What could potentially be at the forefront of one or more of these fears for you? Because the more you can become aware of that, then it's easier to then be able to move forward with knowing. So let me know in the chat box about which one or ones might be at the forefront for you. And when we share, it means that we know that everybody else is human as well. So it's always really good to share. Thanks, Declan. Fear of failure. Yep. Anybody else want to give us a go and let us know for them? So Kim started a new job. She didn't feel like she'd have a voice as yet in normal meetings, let alone Zoom meetings. Self-judgment more than others. Thank you, Petrina, for sharing. Excellent. And Carol's got a lot of them going on. Fear of humiliation, not the worries about failure. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. So I want you just to, after this, is just take note of that and think of what some things that you can then be able to do that can start to really reduce that. And I'm going to give you some tools and things like that that you're going to be able to take from this. So, because then what happens is then we have the fears, but we also have our inner voice that then plays a part in that. So right now that, you know, everything in a lot of people's lives, maybe for your own or for your community, have changed. So a lot of it can be is that coming from survival, increased stress because everything is so different. People are homeschooling. So there's just so much of a factor that can be going on for people with stress, self-belief, values going on. Just a lot of things can be happening for people right now. So really what we want to be looking at in terms of communication with yourself and also with others is being able to just take some time for yourself to really lower some of that stress levels and really start to think about, you know, what is those inner voices telling you? Is the fact that we've went from in person to being at home to then doing lots of things online. Could it be technology? Could it be, yes, that there could be judgments? All of those different things going on for you is that thinking, what can you start to put in place that actually starts to lower some of those stress levels? And maybe looking at your own values around what you do and how you help people. So I say to people, really start to hone in on your values and your passion around what it is that you do. Yes, there might be some slight changes because of the technology, but what you do to help people hasn't changed. It's still there within you. It's still there within you with the passion and the values that you have. So take some time to really come back to those values, what you're passionate about, because when it comes to pushing through that barrier of the judgment, of all of those different things that come with it, the message is still true to you, to how you want to help people. So that's just something that's really important to get yourself into that right mindset. So then I just want to move on around emotional intelligence, and it's something that is a massive passion for me. It's a high value for me, and really it's about taking a bit of a step back and the fact that your community or the people that you're helping or the people that you want to help, is that emotional intelligence is a very real sense that we have two minds. So one that thinks and one that feels. So then I talk about when we communicate or when we're thinking, is it coming from your head or is it coming from your heart? And right now, given the current situation, I'm a big believer is that we really want to come out of our heads and we want to come from a place of love and a place of heart. Even though somebody might be responding or reacting in a way that's just not their norm, there could just be so much going on for them in their own lives. So the more that we can really be able to take a step back and go, what could potentially be happening for that person or that group that they could be going through? And then taking a bit of a pause and going, am I using this as in my head, or am I really coming from a place of love, a place of heart as well? So really just to remember that part of emotional intelligence. And I want to be able to just touch a little bit more on that. So I've just got this graph on here that I wanted to go through a little bit around that emotional intelligence. And really, you know, we are at home. So I know for some of you on this call and some of the people that I know are really taking this opportunity to do a lot of things for yourself. So really becoming aware of the things that you do that you might not have known before. And I know Tracy, we were chatting earlier on that she came to that conclusion on some things around her home that she thought was somebody else that was doing it and realized that it was actually yourself. So I think it's such an important time to really become aware of yourself, become aware of making sure that you're taking time for you. Because if you're not and you're going full into doing heaps of stuff to help loads of people and trying to fix everything, you know, there's just going to be a time where you're not going to be able to keep that momentum up. So it's really about making sure that you start to be able to do the work on yourself, become aware. That's right, you can't pour from an empty cup. So really take this opportunity, I cannot stress that enough, of what I have seen from people from 3-4 weeks ago that were right there at the beginning going, get online, really start to pivot, really pushing everybody to do this. And you think, well, you actually have to take a step back and go, where am I? Where do I need to go? But what about my community? What do they need and want right now? Because when we come from a place where we're being authoritative or directive to people, and when they're not thinking the way that they were because they're in survival, they're not going to be able to take on what you say, and they're going to become quite reactive to it. I know for myself, I've switched off from quite a lot of people on social media because of those reasons. So first step is becoming self-aware of yourself and what you need and want. And then you can go on to be self-management around that, of emotional self-control, of your own reactions and responses to people, being adaptable, achievement orientated, and starting to look at, you know, what is there some positive aspects of what has happened, so that you're then in a better place to be able to help other people with potentially what some of their positive outcomes and outlooks that they can have. So then when we do fill our cup, we can start to then look at our community and social awareness and come from a place of empathy, come from a place of organizational awareness. And I've got some clients who are managers and leaders, and I've actually been really, the first half of our sessions have always been about self-awareness, self-care routines, to then going, okay, now we can put some structure into how you're helping your organization. And it's always about, let's come from a place of empathy, because we just don't know what people are going through. So the more that we can take a step back and use words around, like, I'm curious to find out a little bit more about what's going on for you. Tell me more, I'm really interested. So sometimes it's about changing the language in which we communicate to people, that then they then know that you're in it for them and not just so much about ourselves. So then we can then take it up another level and go to relationship management. So then we can really become a person of influence by coming from a place of emotional intelligence, empathy. We can then put ourselves and position ourselves as coaches or potentially mentors for people, having a buddy system, accountability. And we're then able to help conflict management, which means that even if you're not in a workplace, is that you're building communities, you potentially still could have some conflict going on as well. So that's just something that you can be able to manage better. In communities, we've still got teamwork, because you've still got different people doing different roles as well. And then we want to then move on to having that, becoming that leader, being that inspirational leader, is that when we push by a lot of those fears to put ourselves out there, we're actually giving our audience and our community permission to do the same. So sometimes it might feel like, why am I the person out here being the leader and pushing myself out there? But sometimes some of us just needs to pave the way for others to then join the path that we're on and really be able to come with us. So you can go online as well, and this is recorded and we'll just send it out to you, but, you know, having a look at some emotional intelligence and seeing, you know, where you're at, where your community is at and what they need as well, and just making sure that it's maybe something in a workplace or a community that you're working together to get the same outcome as well. And Declan will be talking a lot of goal setting and all of those different types of things as well. So just some other things to be able to touch on as well around emotional intelligence going on to communication is that we have to remember is that we can become super close in our own businesses, in our own workplace, that we can't see what's actually in front of us. So we're just so close that we can't see the wood for the trees. So it is about stepping back from that, looking at the bigger picture and thinking, okay, how can I remove myself from being so close to my business, the way that it was, or my community, the way that it used to be? How can we then be able to separate the woods from the trees and be able to move forward as one to do that? And the second one is around 6 and 9. So if you've heard around sorry, I'm just touching in the Craig had a question. As you may find in speaking, become reluctant to speak their minds and help identify what they need awareness. Can you see? Well, thank you, Craig. That's really, really interesting. And yeah, people do that, where they don't want to speak their minds. And sometimes maybe it is about having some one-on-one conversations with people and really just asking more questions around what do they need and want. Sometimes people don't want to answer in front of a group, but maybe it's seeing how you can maybe have one-on-one conversations with people as well. So then we've got 6 and 9. So that's that part of, so one person sees it one way, the other person sees it the other, and no one ever meets in the middle or goes over to say, you know, that's a really interesting point that you have there. Can I come over and learn a little bit more about what you're talking about? And it doesn't mean that we have to stay over there. We can go over to the person, listen, understand, and then we can come back over to where we're coming from as well. But we don't want it to be a point where we just never go over to listen to the other person. And then the final one is that we should never assume what people are thinking or what people are saying. Is that Oscar Wilde says that when we assume, we make an ass out of you and me. So it's always really important to be able to ask more questions and check in with people rather than taking on our own assumptions and judgments and all of those different types of things, because we do just then make asses out of each other because we've assumed. So that's just a bit of a 3-step thing about just making sure that how close you are to the situation. Are you going over to find out more about where the other person's coming from? And also looking at whether you're making assumptions about the other person. And I'm sure all of you have seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I just wanted to pop this in here because of what's happening is that, you know, people are maybe coming out of fear, survival. Have they got enough income coming in? Have they got a roof over their head, food, all of those things going on. So the more that we can become aware of where people are at, if they've not got all of those things in safety, it's going to be really more difficult for people to then feel like they've got a sense of belonging, to then be able to communicate what they're thinking as well. So just making sure that potentially within your community is that, are you being able to do something that meets their needs in order for them to be able to move up the hierarchy of needs, to be able to then communicate more about what they need and want as well. So one of the other things as well around communicating with your communities or your audience is that this is such an amazing time to, I mean, storytelling has always been there. It's been there since the start of time. People connect with us when we share stories. And I think this is another way to really support your community, is by sharing some of those stories, sharing what you've went through, sharing what other people have went through, building that human connection with other people and sharing where they're at. And I think that's what people need right now. And I know from my own experience with my own audience and people that I work with, is that being able to tell people that you might have had struggles, you felt like that on days. So we're all human, we're all going through our own journey throughout this, but the more that we can communicate that with people, the more that they can know that you understand where they're coming from. So if you're having not the greatest day, then, reach out and ask for help. But then on the days where you're feeling really positive, really good, then, see where you can be able to direct that energy and see who you could potentially help in that moment. And I think it's great when we are all in different stages and we're all going through different things each day, because we always have other people that we can reach out to as well. So sharing stories is such a massive thing right now. Because we are, a lot of us at home, but then yes, we're having the connection on Zoom, but I don't know if anybody else, but then I find it quite exhausting by the end of the day if I've spent a lot of time on Zoom looking into my camera. And really what I'm craving is just being able to have conversations with people that's kind of not business related, not necessarily COVID related, but just being able to have that human connection. And yesterday I had that with one of my friends, and it was amazing just to be able to have more of that human connection without everything else going on. So, and being able to share stories about that. So really kind of look at how you're helping people. Is it a case of having conversations or stories with people without any expectations or outcome, and really connect with people on a personal level and human level, and really about remembering why you got started. So if you're in a situation, Kim, you've started a new job, maybe people in your business about having to change and alternative and pivot might be quite challenging. And when you go back to why you're doing it, then this is really going to help you to adapt to the changes that you're going through, is remembering your why, remembering all the people that you are helping. Really remember that every day that you wake up, and know that no matter what's going to happen today, is that you know why you're doing it. And it's really, really important to remember that. And just remembering that each day is that when we talk about fail, is that it's your first attempt in learning. Okay, so it's not failure, it's your first attempt in learning. So start learning today. I was saying this morning when I was watching the sunrise over the ocean this morning, and the sun gets up every day. It doesn't really care about judgment, it doesn't care about all of these things, it just gets up every day, right? So it's really about getting up each day, learning, keep doing it and keep practicing it, and you'll get there in the end. But if we don't show up every day, then we can't actually improve and we can't learn as well. So just a quick, because I'm going to pass over to Declan in a few short minutes, I just want to ask people in the chat, you know, what's maybe one thing that you've taken away from what I've been able to share today? What's some things that you think, oh, I'm going to be able to take away and start implementing? Let me know in the comments. Even just one thing. That's right, lead with empathy, know your why, sharing your personal truth, reaching out. Awesome, guys. Excellent. Always remember your why, Carol, that's right. Showing up. Excellent, thank you. So just before I finish, what's one thing that you need a little bit more help with? Let me know from my section. What's one thing that you would like some more help with? Goal setting. Well, that's coming next, Kim. Tone when speaking. Yep. Coming up with the right words. Yep. Clarity of message. Yep. Time management and prioritization. Patrina, I'm laughing because I know Patrina, so that's quite good. So just for me, if anybody does want a little bit more help with anything, I do offer free strategy calls. So do reach out to me if you do just want to go over anything further, and I can see if and where I can help you. I've got some freebies on my website as well. So do reach out, or be able to come over to speakingstyles.com.au and be able to just get some more resources, that type of thing, just to really be able to help you a little bit further. Then reach out to me or pop over to my website, and you can find lots of different things there. So now I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to pass over to Declan, that's really going to go into the goal setting and a lot of those other things that he's going to be able to share with you all. So I'm going to stop sharing and pass over to Declan, who is going to come up next.
Thanks, Melanie. Really enjoyed that. I've got tons of notes from what you've looking forward to going through that. Assuming everyone can hear me just before I start and nothing else happens. Excellent. So what I'll do as well, I'll do my own screen sharing. Just a second. Okay, excellent. What I'll do as well is I'll have my chat box open. So plenty of opportunities to offer your thoughts as we go along. And naturally, I'm really keen to hear specifically from you guys what you are doing just now, any projects you have coming up, and what you're really looking to get out of my section. So with mine, I'll just give you a quick introduction. A few of you guys know me already, of course. One of the things I was keen to touch on was why I'm doing the webinar today as well. From my angle, I've got two main hats that I wear, so to speak, when it comes to presenting and doing events. One of them is with the nutrition business. A lot of that is one-on-one, group coaching, much more about fitness specifically as a topic. And the other area is Startup Grind, which I touched on very, very briefly in the start. That is essentially a global community of entrepreneurs where we host monthly events with top experts in our city, of course, Edinburgh being my one specifically. And I really do a bit of storytelling almost about what we've done the last few weeks, especially given the outbreak. If you guys are keen to get involved with a bit of social media too, please share. We've got a hashtag SSDM, Speaking Styles and Deck McLaughlin. Really quickly, what's my agenda for today? Of course, these times are always rough. I do tend to deviate at least a small amount. So tying nicely into the why that Melanie touched on at the end, really starting to think about what's important to us ourselves and also to our community, and a bit more specific. So how can we help? A few tools that you can use, a few things to look out for, and a bit of goal setting. And absolutely priority, I think, especially for me, is Q&A at the end. Let me know, please, what you're keen to learn. So Q&A as well. Give a wee prize as well for the best question, which I'll reveal at the end. So no pressure, of course. And a bit more about myself. Community, absolutely the buzzword of today. And I think that we can all resonate with how important it is, and even more so given the COVID-19 outbreak. Excellent. So what I thought would be quite useful, even as a self-reflective exercise, is listing one reason that you think, top of your head, first thing that comes to mind, especially in these times, for you is an important reason why community matters. I'll offer one of mine. Let's see. One of the reasons for me, especially from a business point of view, is learning from others and sharing the problems that you have and having an objective view on things. That's something that I find incredibly useful. And one thing that you can really touch on as well after today is a bit of motivational interviewing, which is really tying nicely into this why side of things. Absolutely, Craig, I totally agree. It's quite useful, and it's one of these things where I remember when I first did this, I was a bit skeptical actually. I would often start with a project and have a rough goal in mind, but there was no real deeper meaning behind it. And this is something that's really easy, quick, and effective way of getting to the root of it. And it can be effective for asking other people. For instance, I know Craig mentioned as well, and it's something that I think is really common. A lot of people in a group environment are maybe not as comfortable sharing as much about what they're looking for and their why behind certain things. So that's something that can be incredibly useful. Thanks, Jenna. Martin, I totally agree. I think it's been hard for many of us, and I think this shared experience is something that we can really touch on when we are being empathetic with others. One idea that I'm really, really keen to share was the idea of the dial. Now, I think Martin, you mentioned about continuity and momentum. That is something that I've been really, really interested in recently. So one thing that might be quite useful if everyone's open to using the chat as well is starting to think about where you are in terms of capacity with your dial. Actually, you know, I agree. Mental well-being, massive part of it. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the dial idea. It's essentially looking at your business or projects or running events. Instead of an all or nothing, you're doing it 100% or not doing it. Thinking of it as a sliding scale from 0 to 10. For instance, as a really good example, if you think about pre-COVID-19, so if you're running maybe a fitness class or doing some charity fundraising and being able to go out and about and there's no limitations, you may be at a consistent, maybe 7 or an 8, quite a kind of standard amounts. You're able to do and put a lot into each project. Obviously, the last few weeks, that's maybe been reduced down to 1 or 2. The beauty of this is you still have this sense of continuity, and it's a really easy way to reduce the pressure on yourself as well. As an example, specifically, this could be, instead of doing 2 events per week, this could be 1 event every couple of weeks that's much shorter. Instead of 1 hour, it's only 30 minutes and it's much more interactive. So your preparation time is minimized as well. One thing I was really keen to touch on was actually taking a positive approach to the whole situation. This is a really great quote I often use, and it really keeps us grounded and starts to think, actually, maybe this could be a great time for innovating and thinking outside the box. Because we've all been forced indoors, is actually a really unique situation where, if we're smart and proactive, could really open some new opportunities. One of the great things about the virtual aspect, and you guys can see, of course, today, Melanie being in Australia, halfway across the world, I'm in Edinburgh. This is something that outside of COVID-19 is may or may not happen. And I think that's something to really look at. There's no more geography, of course, as a restriction for people too. And for some, there may be more time, especially people maybe furloughed or don't have as much work on. And it's a really great opportunity to reach out to the community and come together more often, potentially. Okay, task number 2. So this is something that really gets us thinking about the structure in a bit more detail. One of the things I was, again, keen to touch on was thinking about the specific needs and actually the tone with your audience. I guess a really brief example, if you guys are happy to share, of course, on the chat. If you were to create a webinar yourselves or an event that was really based around community support, who would you be aiming to reach, and what for you do you think the tone you'd be aiming to do would be as well? So you can see I've got one example, of course, in the slides. Another one, if I was thinking, taking a bird's eye view, 2 would potentially be with my coaching. So with the nutrition coaching, specifically helping out fellow entrepreneurs who are very busy, obviously high stress currently in the unprecedented times. And one thing to really think about with messaging is making it as specific as you can. Often with messaging, it can be quite vague. Great example, Melanie. Heartfelt, absolutely. Ties in brilliantly with the empathy as well. And one thing to really double down on, which I'll of course do at the end, is Q&A. And I know that Craig mentioned as well that people often don't like sharing in groups, which I think can be quite common. One thing to consider is more one-on-one conversations. And with this, you can really put in some motivational interviewing and really presenting it as an opportunity for them to actually help you out. And I think that's a really great way of doing things. Having the support of the community means that they'll buy into it because they'll feel a certain ownership of running events. A few more great examples. So young people, my team, enterprise help, inspiring tone. I like that. Really keeping things positive. Absolutely, Carl. I totally agree. Keeping the concerns specific to them as well. So if I take a bit more time on this one, thinking of it almost as a checklist for each event. And there's a few things that I'll just run through very briefly. Thinking about software. Now, we're using Zoom today, which I'm a massive fan of. Of course, it's by far and away the most popular. One thing as well, I know, Craig, of course, Facebook Live might be more specific for you and for running certain training sessions. Don't be afraid to test, would be my recommendation. I've also listed a couple of interactive ideas. And that's it for Zoom last week. Oh, excellent, fantastic. And hope it went well. Hopefully, I'm sure there's some of these things you'd considered as well. So toasty and icebreaker, again, really great ways to get people speaking and sharing and connecting with each other. And a few things to maybe just tick off almost when it comes to presenting with high quality webcam and light, which is facing you. I've not quite got the perfect setup here, but it's something that's been a good help for me. Podcast and microphone you might want to consider as well. One thing to do as a thought exercise is think about your channels, and with the more time, it may be a great opportunity to think about new channels to reach out to as well. One thing I really can touch on too was thinking about the sign-up process and asking yourself the question of how can I make this as smooth and quick as possible for people. And that's a really great way to, again, think about your process and make changes if you want. So it's a good answer there. Super Facebook Live, keen to explore. Excellent, good, fantastic. One recommendation I'd also make is looking at what other people are doing and actually taking small parts from different examples. And I would actually recommend looking at different industries or types of events. So as an example, if you were helping out business owners, you might actually look at events that are maybe more fitness based, because what you tend to find is there's some really good principles that carry over in terms of communication, in terms of interactivity, so asking questions, getting feedback, in terms of the time, the structure, and everything else. So I recommend looking at maybe 2 to 3 examples and actually signing up as audience participants. I guess today's a good example too. So between automatic responses. Excellent. That's a great question. Actually, we'll touch on that in much more detail at the end. That'll help we get a good answer there. And coming back to the messaging specifically again, one thing that I'll be doing at the end is giving a few key takeaways, short snippets that I've made as specific as possible. And this is something that really focuses you when it comes to planning as well. As an example, if you ask yourself what are the problems and barriers that the audience are facing, as an example, of course, this is more business focused, potentially small business or startups. Funding is obviously a big issue. How do they adapt to digital offerings as well? So that's something to think about. So really quickly, if you guys have time as well, just on the chat, thinking about what are the main problems that your audience are facing. And again, it's a really useful self-reflective tool. So those are some examples that I can think of, absolutely. And similar to the nutrition coaching too. So with nutrition, biggest one for a lot of people is being at home and there's a lot of food around in the environment. So it's much harder to stick to what they're hoping to eat for the day. Of course, there's the high stress as well, looking after their kids and cooking and balancing that with work. And these are things that I can list out in bullet points and make sure that I do address specifically. That's it. On some goal setting to really get towards closing up. I'm sure many of you are familiar with SMART goal setting. So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. One of the most important ones, I think, is the time-bound aspect. And this is something that can really not quite motivate you, but almost force you to start. With many goals, if there's no deadline set, it's very open-ended, and it can be very easy to put things off and never begin. So a good example at the end there, and this is something that's been a big help for me the last couple of years, is being as specific as I possibly can. And this is a really great anchor, which can keep you on the right path. One thing to also consider as well is don't be afraid to put yourself first. I know that's something Melanie mentioned and touching on the whole idea of you can't pour from an empty cup. Absolutely not. And if you think about the idea of what do you want to get out of it, that is actually important. So don't be afraid to have that as your starting point, and that will often lead you into really much more productive few months when we're in lockdown. Leading on for this, a broken down specific example. You'll notice I've listed daily, weekly, and monthly goals. This is something that can be incredibly effective for giving you a stepping stone. Of course, it can be quite scary to look at a big goal that's away up in distance and not want to begin with any of the tasks. So this is something that you can do. And a lot of this ties into momentum. If you think about the daily goals, something that's so small and simple that you know you can do no matter what, even if you think about your dial and you're down at a 1 or a 2, plenty of life stress going on, not a huge amount of time to do things. But if you can say, okay, I can commit to reaching out to 2 members of my community per day, sending them a one-to-one message, and with that, you get a huge amount back. You get feedback on what they want, what they're looking for, the problems they're facing. You can also boost your engagement and ask if they're willing to help out with running events, if they're willing to spread the word or come up with new ideas. And that's something that can be incredibly effective. So I'm thinking about the long-term goal as well. It's a really great anchor that you can reverse engineer from. If we choose today as an example, Melanie and I met a couple of months ago, planning the events, which we set a specific date for. And then from there, we worked backwards. And that was a really effective way of knowing what our tasks were for the week and even the day specifically. And it actually becomes almost automatic, which can be incredibly useful. That's it. So here's something to probably go away and think about a bit more detail. And there's something I've just listed out as a more specific example. So this would be, for instance, for small business owners and thinking about how they themselves adapt to COVID-19, starting with why. So why is it important for them? Why can they make the changes? The how, of course. For instance, for them, they may be thinking about webinars as well and how they themselves can create new support groups, community. Great question, Martin. Does it have to be related to pandemic? I don't think so, that's Martin. And I think actually in many ways, I'm sure many of us have seen how much content there is. I agree, Melanie, yeah, absolutely, about the pandemic. That it might be quite refreshing actually to speak about a different narrative, and people may find that coming away from focusing on the crisis can be quite a good break from thinking about it. And I guess if you think about it, even now we changed to virtual events, many of the principles are still the same. So the webinar I'm presenting today would be very similar to in person, and the problems and the issues that we're hoping to help out with absolutely remain similar too. So I'm touching on the final point again, smart goals as well. And it's something that I absolutely used to be quite skeptical of. It's something that's a bit of a buzzword that you hear in many presentations, but I do find that the specificity of it can be a massive help. Fantastic. And of course, one thing we can always come back to is being human, showing some empathy, very relatable tweets that many of us are sure familiar with. Find a bit of humour. I think as a really overarching message, the whole shared experience that we're all going through, I think can be a real positive, and the fact that we can all resonate and share what share the uncertainty can actually bring us closer together, especially as a community. That's it. And of course, a thank you to everyone for joining us. Early morning in UK, of course, later on in Australia. And this has been a real great positive for me and for Melanie to really focus on. I think it's really great to share what we're all going through, touch on that final slide as well. And of course, my 3 take-home messages: practice what I preach, I guess, to a certain degree. So number 1, I added the word specifically, and that's something that I'm thinking is really important. And a lot of it does come down to the questions you ask. And I would recommend speaking to people one-on-one, because with that, you really do get down to the finer details, and they'll really feel appreciated, and you're really answering what they're looking for. Number 2, with my, I guess, science background, thinking of experimenting, absolutely. So try as much or as many different software approaches as you can, different durations, different structures as well. And of course, think long term, huge amount of uncertainty absolutely right now. But if you have a real anchor that you can place in the future, that could be massive, massive help. Fantastic. And that's me. This way you can find me on all the usual platforms. And if you are keen to have a chat about anything when it comes to nutrition coaching or similar, please get in touch, and happy to help. That's it. And I think, excellent. So what I'll do, I'll just start sharing my screen now, and then we've got a bit of time just mainly for questions. So like I said, really keen to answer what you guys are looking for, and we'll wrap up after then with some final thoughts as well.
Thank you, Declan. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Definitely amazing. I just wanted to come back to Craig, if that's okay, just on your question. I was just going back through it again, and just around the finding out the needs and wants of people, and a lot of what I do with that is picking up the phone to people. On Facebook, I do with certain questions that I'm asking. So using different types of language really helps with getting people to tell you what they need and want. So things like in my closed group, I'll say, hey everyone, like I'm curious to know what everybody's learning today. I'm curious to what everybody's working on. So when we use exploration type language, people are more inclined to want to share things with you than they are when we're like, hey, what's everybody up to? What they doing? So it's about changing the language, changing the style in which we ask the questions in order to be able to get that back. But it is maybe taking some time to potentially pick up the phone, whereas in a group it can be a bit harder to facilitate in order to get that back. But yeah, does that help a little bit more for you, Craig? Does that help you, Craig? I've unmuted you now. Excellent. Excellent. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to unmute everybody, because then it means, and if anybody has control, just means then we can kind of do a bit of people interacting, the fact that we're in a smaller group. Are you there, Craig?
Hello, how are you doing?
Here we go. Yeah, does that help with your question from earlier?
Greatly. A lot of time as well. Yeah, people are. I think for the want of trying, I think sometimes it's maybe a cultural thing. Some people, as I'm sure you know yourself, some people are more than happy to give their opinion, and others aren't. And sometimes it's you want to get the balance. Yeah.
That's right, exactly. But glad, I just wanted to, because I was doing it, I was like, I'm going to come back to that question at the end just to elaborate a little bit more on that. But yeah, does anybody have any questions for myself or for Declan from today? Oh, and Carol's gone. She's got to walk the dog, so Carol's gone. That's fine.
Yeah, good reason, absolutely. Responses. It's a great question, Ginny. So is that based on what you would send? So if somebody says that they attend your event, this would be something that is automated?
Yeah, Katrina. So there's a tutorial somewhere about how to set up Facebook responses. So Katrina, is that in Messenger?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Mel?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, just so if someone says they want to come to my event, just like a professional response that says what the next step is, more so.
Yeah.
Like, directions about what they need to get ready for the event, or how to pay, like, because I'm not using that, the bank.
That's good.
Katrina, I can help you a little bit with that. I've got like a bot on my business page that answers for me, just because and it directs people to my website. But I should be able to help you with doing that on your Facebook. We could look at installing a chat box.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
If anybody else has any other suggestions, that's just something that I have on my page. Declan, do you have any other suggestions?
No, I mean that's a really good one. Another thing to think about if you're open to it is using Eventbrite, because that has a really good integration with Facebook. And hopefully you guys saw today, Eventbrite are great about doing emails, especially for virtual events, which do it quite neat and quite polished. Here's the link for Zoom. See you guys in 2 hours, for instance, as the example today. And what you can do there, and I'm just thinking maybe more from a time perspective, especially if you have a few people who have quit attending. If you have Eventbrite, you can send emails to attendees. I think it does, because it's got the branding and the structure that Eventbrite make, it does tend to it quite neat. That would be just my recommendation. So.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm at that level yet, but yeah, it's something certainly to think about for later. Thank you, Declan.
Definitely. Thanks, Martine. Much appreciated for that. Yeah, on your business page, you can set your instant replies. So that's something. Yeah, on a business page, we can do. But on Patrina's, we can have a bit of a look at that. It's even just if it's setting up a couple of things.
Yeah, perfect.
Definitely. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody else?
Hi. Not really a question, but just a huge thank you to say that I found that very, very helpful. I think it's for being over in the UK, it's certainly a very positive way to start the day for us. And I think it's just having the confidence. I like the point that Declan made about software, that's having the confidence to, there are so many avenues digitally at the moment. So it's just having the confidence to go in and give it a try. And, sometimes it may take a couple of hours or a couple of days, but it's just having the confidence that it's there as well. So thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this morning.
Excellent. You're such so welcome, Tracy. Thank you so much for taking the time to jump on and get to meet you as well.
You too.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Martine, as well. You're off to go and walk your children, so feel free if you need to go. Thank you so much, Martine. Yeah, it was lovely to meet you. I think we're now connected on social media, so let's stay connected and see how your journey goes as well. And have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for taking. Great to catch up with everyone.
See you later. Craig, do you have any other questions for myself or Declan?
No, none that are specific just now. We'd be keen to stay in touch with you both, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's stay connected and we don't know what will happen in the future. We might create something like this again and add some other people into it as well. So yeah.
Well, I found it really, really beneficial, because I think it's given me already probably a list of about 6 things I can start doing already. The first of which I'll action today. Yes. So all really good things, and it's refreshing to hear it delivered in such a concise way. Yeah.
So Craig, just tell me a little bit. What do you do?
So I recently, it's a little bit on the quiet just now, but I recently made a purchase of a combat sports company. It's not something that I tell my members about, because I started off as one of the class. So I had the unique point of understanding what worked, or what the people who come to the class liked. So when I took over the running of it, I was able to at least give a different perspective to the original owner. So I run a combat sports club, which is we have 6 classes each and every week. Obviously that stops for the moment, and so everything for me has transferred really onto trying to keep the active members kind of together. And I think that I'm noticing more and more that Zoom and Facebook Live are becoming a way of people to really actually feel that they are connected. I didn't realize it until people started messaging me about it, and you realize that you yourself, as the sort of the figurehead of it, you're actually kind of the glue to keep it together. And it's not so much about I realized something the other day. I set up a Zoom a Facebook group for the people who are involved in it, a small chat page. And what I noticed was, as I thought, well, you know, I'll back out, and I've set it up, I'll back out and I'll let them, have the opportunity to keep it going. And it was only about a week later, somebody said to me, and a few people said, look, the conversation kind of nosedived, we kind of need you there. And I was thinking, oh, okay, well, happy to do that, but so yeah, I think it's just like you said, it's realizing, and I took a note here, Declan, that you said, for example, was it over communicate a proactive interest on the well-being of others? I think making that my first priority.
Oh, brilliant.
It is about, you do end up having to have more of a presence online. You need to be the leader and be at the forefront of people are seeing, because your audience needs you. Like if they're suddenly not being able to potentially do a lot of fitness that they've been used to, I mean, that could then really, like, it's, keeping fit and things like that, it's such a mental well-being. And I think for you to really put yourself in that is that you're really being able to help people through this, what's going on, as well, and keeping that going.
So interesting as well. That you said about going off topic. I know it's very easy to talk about COVID-19 because it's current and because it's relevant, but it's interesting that it's almost like, find a way to engage with your community on a different subject, give them that levity. I think it's so important.
Yeah. That's right. It's kind of like, but it's because it's bringing that fine line of like, it's business as usual, but it's coming from a place of empathy. Like you can still say to people, so I never talk about COVID-19. Like I really don't. In my closed group, I go on and say, I'm super aware given the current situation that we're in, but you know what? Today I'm jumping on live with 3 tips that are going to help you today. Because I think sometimes our audience needs to not have it at the forefront when, we've got it all over news and social media. And I think that we're in such a position that we get to be able to give them maybe half an hour of time away from it, like we're normal human beings. So I think that is such a key thing around, it's still business as usual, but you're still being really mindful and aware of where people are at given the current situation.
That's really, really good. That's really interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
I think
it's funny because it's trying to. I think there's such a glut of information out there about what is going on in the world just now. It's trying to keep yourself aware of it, trying to keep yourself abreast of it, but at the same time, it really affects your happiness. It affects your whole outlook on your day to day, and even just how you interact with your family as well sometimes.
Definitely. Tracy, what did you have?
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
No, I was just thinking about, you were saying, Craig, about the fitness side of it. I'm a sports fundraiser. I'm also a fitness instructor, and we have a Facebook page, and also work for a local baby loss charity. So we have our Facebook page. It's called Team Health in Our Hearts, and that is a big community of, it's about 500. Nearly 600 are on that page now, and it's a huge community of runners and fitness. It would be great to touch base with you, because I think people potentially are getting sick of the sight of my face and my posts. Although I post that I am, and I think it'd be quite nice to have from Declan's posted nutrition stuff, and it's been absolutely brilliant. So I think if you're looking to maybe join it and have a wee post, we've actually got we're all hooking up tonight, and some of the guys will be on that Zoom tonight. So if you wanted to pop along or join on the page, it'd be great to have you. I would love to. Some inspiration, it'd be great, and I think it'd be good for us to connect, because with the fitness side of it, it's keeping that motivation going. As Melanie and Dick were talking about, it's just the whole, having that whole positive attitude. There is so much online, it's like overload. I'm off work next week, and I'm just looking forward to not having a laptop, throwing my phone in my bag for a day, even. Well, maybe a morning, I won't last a whole day, but not being online. But yeah, Craig, it'd be great to touch base with you too. I think it'd be nice to swap ideas.
I would love to. Love to hear your own ideas as well. Most definitely. Happy to help in whatever way I can. Just let me know how we can best connect. The Facebook page you mentioned.
Right, well, it's Team Held in Our Hearts, it's called. It's a Facebook page. Declan's on it as well. Melanie, you're more than welcome to jump on and help with ideas and stuff. It'd be absolutely great to have you.
Thank you.
It's hashtag team held in our hearts, I should have said, but
if you're in, like Declan, if you're in friends with me and Craig on Facebook, can you invite us into the group? Is that easier?
I think so. Yeah, I can definitely send you the link at the very least.
and if not, if you request to be added, I can just